Bujo, Bijo Wins Minawa, Wakamuha, Wakawi Indigo, Wabajation Dodem, Kasaga Squad, Jimmy Cog, Minawa, Inda Nungum, Gagige Nishnabe, Dakota Kwe Minawa, Adewana Kwe, Idasha, Ogechira Kwe and Dao. So Bujo relatives, it's really beautiful to be here up in this territory. And thank you for the host for your beautiful hospitality and that amazing Bannock. Got to speak for the Bannock. So I'm going to talk, I did a little bit of this last year on Pipestone, and I want to kind of recap what we went over last year and give you a little update. Pipestone, Minnesota, it is the womb of our sacred stone. The stone, the majority of the chanupa is made from stone that has been harvested at this location in southwestern Minnesota. There are a few other sites where you can harvest pipestone, but it's not the same quality as the stone that comes from this area. So there's a couple issues at Pipestone that we're addressing, and there's one more I hear on the way. First and foremost, it is a sacred site. And if you go to the Pipestone National Park, National Monument, you will see the statement by our chief here. He talks about Pipestone being that sacred site. And so with AIM, for the last, I want to say 30 years, we've held a Sundance there. And it's really beautiful to dance there and dance right on, knowing that you're dancing on that sacred stone, that you're honoring and sleeping and praying right there and giving that sacrifice. The site also became a boarding school. In 1893, the first the Pipestone Boarding School was opened. And it has since closed down. And the students were transferred across a few miles away to the Bellanger Boarding School. But we found out there is a cemetery there as well. And I'm sure you're aware of those issues of having the cemeteries. The cemetery, of course, is unmarked. And if you ask any park staff, they don't know where it is. And so we've been working on using traditional methods, ceremony offerings, food, asking to be shown where this gravesite is of these little girls. Pipestone is used for our sacred stone, our pipes. And there's a story about the blood of our people that accompanies that location. And so therefore, when we go to Pipestone, when events are there, and it is honored, revered as that sacred, very, very sacred, special site. Even the quarries, before they go in and they harvest the stone, they offer their sema, their tobacco, they offer food, they offer sometimes prayer ties, and people come from all over to quarry there to work to get that sacred stone. Other places you can get stone: Barron County, Wisconsin, Tremper Mound, Ohio, Yavapai County, Arizona, Garrettson, South Dakota, northwestern Kansas, Jefferson Lake and Lincoln counties in Montana. And again, it's pipestone, but it's not the same quality as this particular site. So pipestone historically has been that gathering place, a place of harvest, and so many tribes went there to go harvest that stone so that they would have their chanupa. It became part of a treaty and protected through the 1858 treaty. And so our people gathered there. We know there's a site where there's a few individuals that we know where their camp was. Some of our chiefs, we don't go around disclosing all of that, just like when we find that cemetery, we have to go back to our elders and say, what do we do now? We want to do it all in a good way. So there is a boarding, okay, go forward, sorry. One more. This is the only building left of the boarding school. It's the superintendent's house. And when you go there, you feel the energy there. It's scary, but it's really, really sad. You feel it in your gut. This is the location of the Indian cemetery. So this is a picture of the park. Go on to the next one. Now you got to go back. There's a map of the park. The quarries are the active quarries that have been, they're actual holes in the ground and people are digging them up, is in the center part of that park there on the left. And then the picture on the right is one of the local tribal members, a couple of them pulling out a big piece of pipestone. The work that goes into it, you're moving stone. You have to break through layers and layers of stone to get to that sacred, the layer of the pipestone. Next slide. So next is the pipeline. So we were informed that there's a pipeline that runs right over the sacred stone and through the park and on heading towards Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And you see these pipeline markers, they weren't there long ago. Or, like for years, they might have just been a little tiny stick, but more recently, the pipeline is more prominent. Next slide. So here we have the timeline. The boarding school opened in 1893, we'll say. The park opened in 1937. U.S. Great Lakes Pipeline Company applies for the row, and that's that little paragraph at the bottom. It's the right-of-way for Great Lakes Oil to move their pipeline through the park property. In 1957, the land was transferred from the Department of Indian Education, or Department of Interior Indian Education, to the national parks. And with that transfer of land or title or responsibility and ownership was the right-of-way. It's included in the transfer. In 1967, the right-of-way expired. And to this date, we have not found any document saying there's any right-of-way that's current. And so speed forward ahead, and we find out that the oil company is there looking. The petroleum companies are there meeting with people to try and get a row or right-of-way and a permit to be able to dig down into that pipeline and make repairs. That's what they told us. One of the issues when we went, as we learned about this pipeline, we researched the company, and of course, they're telling everybody down there that, oh, it's safe, this pipeline is safe, and we all know that story. We have some pretty awesome pipeline fighters in here. And so we dug up and shared with the community there. You can go. One more. One more. Oh, back, okay. So since 2000, there have been 40 plus environmental safety violations, totaling over 33 million in fines and penalties. And so when we did a testimony, they called for public testimony, public comment right in the city of Pipestone, and we were actually there with a youth camp teaching them how to quarry and all of that, teaching them about Pipestone. And there was a public hearing. And so we brought it to the kids. I talked to their camp leads, and they said, let's ask the children. So we asked the children, there's a public comment hearing, would you like to go over and learn about this pipeline that's going through Pipestone? They're like, what? I love kids, I'm a teacher. You give them something to fight about and they're all over it. So they're like, yeah, we want to go, we want to go, we want to go testify. And so, of course, at this hearing, they're talking about how great their pipeline is and how safe it is and not to worry and blah, 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 blah. And so we pulled up this information and shared it with the representatives from the state of Minnesota of their track record. Just that company's track record, not all the track records and spills across Turtle Island. And the city or the state officials were a little shocked because, of course, the pipeline company's telling them how great they are. So as we're researching, trying to find the bumblebee, the fish, the cactus plant, all these different elements that are endangered on this land to help us, that will help us fight the fight against the pipeline and stop it. We read in one of the ag reports that there's about the cemetery. We didn't know about the cemetery at this point. We just learned about it and we were like, what? There's a cemetery here? Well, we kind of figured there was one, but it was in the federal document. But it wasn't in the report. It was in the footnotes. Oh, by the way, there's a cemetery and there's some children buried there, but we're not going to tell you where, or we're not going to put it in the report. Why would we do that? But they call it the Indian Cemetery, and it is included in, if you go back and research articles from the local newspaper, they talk about it. The Indian Cemetery out on the reservation, and they call the boarding school the reservation. Okay, one more. This is next to the superintendent's house, and it's the cellar, I think the cellar entrance, and when you go over there, the feeling is just incredible. It's just eerie. Oh man, I lost it. Okay, go ahead. Lonnie. She has too many windows open. Can you find it again? So these are the names of the children that are buried at the cemetery. Mary LaRose, 10 years old. Florence Risler, 7 years old. These are the first four children that died. Mabel Campbell, 11 years old, and Annie Tampanatis, 12 years old. So we're working on finding the families of these children. And we think we have connected with the Campbell, with Mabel's family. And so we want to keep reaching out, and we're continuing to look for these families because we want to create some kind of a memorial for them, and we want the families to have input. So at our Sundance, we had a group with the children, and we asked them to make little signs, and we put out 4 little chairs and orange cloth over them, and then we put those pieces of paper on each chair for those 4 little girls that were buried, that are still buried there. And this is, I think, the first big post that I seen about the boarding school, the find of the children up here. Next. So at the boarding school, at the monument, there was some like youth or civilian workers that come and help, and one of them was Native. And he made a memorial for these children. And when the memorial was put on the ground, when it was installed, then there's a trail that people can walk in the park. And so the monument is over here and the trail is over there. And they're saying that because, and this was in the newspaper, because there's so many people went over to see the memorial, they had to change their path to come by here, and they actually added some words about the memorial for these children that were buried there. That was all that they put on there. And then a couple years later, this memorial disappeared. And we did not have any pictures of that memorial, and so I was envisioning like something that lays in the ground or a rock or something. that they carved the words "Peace Forever" in it. And so we're like, how did people see it from way over there through that tall grass? And then one day digging through our AIM archive stuff, I was looking in one of our newsletters from, 20 some years ago, and this was a picture in that newsletter. And so that marker, that guy's 6 feet tall, that's standing to the left of that marker. So a couple years later, that marker disappeared, thank you. And nobody knows what happened to the marker. Nobody can remember. Like, how does a marker that size disappear? Next slide. So they quit burying children on the property after like 5 years, and they started burying them at the cemetery across the road off the park property at the city cemetery. And so we went and we researched. We went over to the cemetery looking to see if we could find out where they buried the children, because that's where they said they buried them. And go back one. When we researched the list of the cemeteries, we didn't see very many Native people that we thought might have been Native children, but there's a lot of unknown graves. A lot of unknown. So you might want to guess that that's probably our boarding school children in the city cemetery. That's something else we need to address. So back to the pipestone. It was decommissioned about 4 years ago. And then they tried to recommission it, and then it was decommissioned again. And so they actually came out with there was 4 alternative routes of where that pipeline should go. It needs to be rerouted around the federal park. And so there was Route 1, which the park is here, and the route just went just right around the corner from the park. We were like, So the local farmers joined in with us and wanted to be part of this fight, because all of a sudden it was going on their property, right? It was going to cut through their lands. So they wanted us to lead and wanted to support our work so we could all work together to stop this pipeline. So then there was another route, a Route 2, and one of the tribes in Minnesota, northern Minnesota, an Ojibwe tribe, sent forth a route proposal, and that route was maybe 3-mile buffer from the active quarries, and then one more route, which was like almost a 5-mile buffer. And so it went through the Minnesota Department of Commerce and Minnesota Public Utilities Commission, and the route, the 3-mile border one, was approved. So in this fight against this pipeline, there is tribes and ranchers, farmers, community groups, local citizens and representatives. And even the city stepped up and said, we don't want that pipestone, because one of the routes projected was going to go right between 2 of their city cemeteries. And all of a sudden they were saying, we don't want this petroleum product leaking into our cemeteries. What will it do to our relatives that are born there? So all of a sudden they joined the fight. So the tribe that was assigned in the treaty to be the caretakers is the Yankton Sioux tribe. So they have, some of their tribal members have stepped up and have created legal parties to this process. And so it went back into the Public Utilities Commission, where the last I heard it was still there. It's a little scary because old orange head face person over there said that he declared a national energy emergency crisis. So if there's any development companies that want to continue to develop anywhere in U.S. territory, they just need to let them know. He has a committee set up, and the committee will just approve it. So we're a little frightened right now because it's sitting in Minnesota's Public Utility Commission, a governmental body, and hoping that they will keep the minimum of the line that was the route that was originally proposed, but they have began pushing for no pipeline and then at least a minimum 5-mile buffer. So we'll see what happens. In the meantime, we are still trying to contact the families of these children. The National Parks has been organizing or working with the National Boarding School Healing Project on doing some kind of a memorial in the park for the children that attended the boarding school. And we're still working towards raising funds and trying to find the family so we can create a memorial for those children. So that's where we are at with that situation at the Pipestone, Minnesota. Are there any questions? It's the Magellan pipeline. And even then, now it went to another company called One Neck or ONEC. I always call them One Neck, but I think it's ONEC. Something out of Oklahoma. Oh, and then I was saying there's one more threat. So there's the boarding school, there's the current pipeline, and now they're trying to do those, the carbon pipelines, the carbon projects. They were just approved a route up by northwestern Minnesota near Sisseton. They were approved to begin charting a line map from up north, coming in from North Dakota, I believe.
Could you maybe speak to the geological survey they did on the amount of pipestone? I think that's an important dynamic.
You want to come? I love it when people can help.
My name is Bellanger, and I've been involved with some of the pipestone, not to the extent that Lisa and others have, but I've been able to be privy to certain dynamics and information regarding the Pipestone Quarry, and I think this is going to affect a lot of the spiritual people that are in this room. And I would just say that there was an archaeological survey done by some relatives within our territory, and what they discovered was that if you understand how that quarry goes, there's this catlinite strip that sits underneath what they call Sioux quartzite. Sioux quartzite is a highly compressed ancient stone, and it's very heavy. And at the quarry, our ancestors used to quarry the pipestone on the surface. They would just have to remove some of the prairie dirt, some of that topsoil, and it was right there. But over time they quarried, and then today we're quarrying, and you have to go deeper. So if you're ever there and you see these quarries that are maintained today, they're 12 feet below now. And that catlinite goes at a particular angle, maybe almost 45-degree angle down. And what's happened over time is that quartzite gets heavier, and it kind of squeezes that catlinite out towards the opening, so to speak. And they were able to quantify, awesome young lady, researcher from the Oceti-Sakowin, she was able to quantify the amount of catlinite that we would have access to. And it is a limited resource. And so I just wanted to contribute that a little bit to the importance of the importance of us. I'm speaking as a Ihanktawa Yankton Sioux myself, and then my mother's over there too, and how important that is for there to be some sort of regulation in the future that is indigenous-led, because we have non-native people quarrying to the north of the site. We're selling it. You go to Prairie Edge in Rapid City, they're selling pipes. But a lot of our relatives go into that store and they go and buy beadwork and they go and buy fabric, and they don't care that in that case there's pipestone being sold. They'll walk right by it, and it doesn't muster any emotion or feeling. It does for me. And every time I go into Prairie Edge, I'll ask those workers, "Oh, you guys are still selling the blood of our people, huh?" Right? So we have to challenge. You have to challenge them. More and more of us have to hold people accountable, even if it might be a little uncomfortable. We have to challenge people because we come to understand it's a very limited resource now too. So, and not only that, beautiful fall waterfall. Last year, that was a raging torrent over there. That waterfall that flows through there, but it's shallow because of the the glaciers scraping everything. That groundwater, those underground aquifers pop up all over. It's not just the Big Sioux River and things that are nearby, but these aquifers that are all throughout. Those routes that they said that they offered as a reroute around that, there's no way to negotiate. There's no way to negotiate that, because if you choose one route, it crosses 10 aquifers, or water ports or whatever. I can't remember the word, and then if you choose the longer route that goes farther away from the quarry, it crosses like 32 waterways. So we want it away from the quarry. We don't want it at all, but we're kind of in a dilemma, because if we're close, we only cross so many waterways. But then if it's farther away, it crosses more waterways, so more water is affected. It's a heck of a conundrum, and I really feel like, I know Arvel has talked about a buffer zone, not just taking more responsibility for the quarry, but creating a buffer zone that protects not just the stone, but the waterways around that too. So, Hechet.
Watch for that, yeah. And I believe I heard him our chief talking about making pipestone the equivalent protection as like eagle feathers. So, thank you for that. So, are there any other questions? Thank you.